Almost 10,000 overseas trained doctors registered to work in Australia in the last financial year. What I hear a lot from my overseas trained friends and colleagues in medicine is that they move to Australia and then stay here for a few reasons. The lifestyle in Australia, the work that they get to do here, and the pay. So I thought I'd go through my payslip today and be super transparent about exactly how much I earn as a resident doctor in Australia. So my name's Freya. I'm a doctor living and working on Boonwurrung land in Melbourne, Australia. And I've been working as a doctor for 7 years. And if you want to skip straight to the kind of juicy numbers, then just use the timeline down the bottom. And I've put some timestamps in to get you to where you want to go. But if you want to learn a little bit about the context and the structure of today's video, then watch on. So in today's video, I'll go through breakdown of my payslip, how much I used to earn when I was a bit more junior, how much I spent to get this kind of pay, how it compares to other countries, and what I can expect to earn as a consultant when I finish my medical training in Australia. And none of this is a flex or a complaint, I guess, depending on what you think of my pay, but it's just an honest breakdown. Okay, so let's get my pay slip up. So this was my pay slip a couple of weeks ago, and it's a super standard pay slip for the job that I'm doing at the moment. So the pay details are my ordinary hours, an afternoon shift loading rate, and some on-calls, training time, and some continuing medical education allowance. And I'll go through what each of those mean. So my ordinary hours, kind of the base pay that I get for working 76 hours in a fortnight or 38 hours in a week, is $66.50 essentially per hour. So from that, I got just over $5,000 in a fortnight. And then I did one afternoon shift out of that kind of 76 hours, and you get paid like a bit of extra money if you do an afternoon shift. So I got an extra $62. So it was a 5-hour shift. So yeah, whatever that is, $10 more an hour when I do an evening. I was on call 3 times, so I was standby on call. So that basically means that if someone calls in sick to the evening, if I'm evening standby on call, or the night shift, if I'm night shift standby on call, I have to come into the hospital and cover them, or stay on from my shift and cover them. And that is my least favorite thing about being a doctor, being standby on call. I hate it. It's stressful. And then if you get called in, particularly for a night shift, after you've worked part of a day, yeah, terrible. Anyway, so for that, I got $71.50 essentially for each of the on-calls I did, so just over $200. Then training. So as a registrar in Australia, I get 10 hours of training time, which in theory is an hour a day of teaching on average, in theory. And then registrar CME, we just get an extra $237 a fortnight to put towards conferences and textbooks and that kind of thing. All right. So if we think about my ordinary hours as 86 hours a fortnight, so my 76 ordinary and then my 10 hours of teaching. So they're the things that I'll get paid even if I'm on annual leave, I'll still get paid that base rate. And in total, I did some maths for you guys, something I prepared earlier. And when you add that together and then times it by 26 for 26 fortnights in a year, it takes me to $148,708.56. So just under 150,000 Australian dollars per year as my base pay. So now let's go to the deductions. So we have salary packaging. So it's basically healthcare. I'm pretty sure all healthcare workers, I know the nurses definitely do, but we can get $10,000 extra out of our pay over a year, around about, tax-free. So that equates to, actually it's a bit more than 10,000 because it's about 10,000 for living expenses, which goes towards my mortgage. And then it's about 2,000 across the year that you can put on a meals and entertainment card or get reimbursed for dinners out and things like that. It's quite cool. And it ends up being about $582 a fortnight. So that gets taken out and then it gets kind of given back to me after I pay tax on the rest of it. And then the admin fees for that are $16 a fortnight. And then I pay just under $1,500 in tax a fortnight. So my net pay, once you take out my tax and then you add back in my salary packaging amount, is $4,735.83 a fortnight. So if you times that by 26 again to get my annual take-home income in Australian dollars, it's 107,982 cents, or just over 70,000 US dollars, or just over 50,000 British pounds. And if you want to know how much it costs me to then work as a doctor in Australia, I have done a video on that too, which I'll link above and then in the video description. So this pay slip is pretty close to my base pay because I only did, I got a bit of loading for an evening shift and then I did some on-calls, but I didn't do overtime, I didn't do night shifts, I didn't do a weekend shift and things like that. So this is pretty much my minimum pay that I'll get for a fortnight. So if I work the weekends or I get called in for a night shift when I'm standby on call, I would get a lot more than this. And if you're interested in a pay slip when I was doing more on calls and after hours and things like that, then I can go through one of those as well because it's quite different and a lot more complicated. So I've got friends that work as unaccredited surge reggers and they make up to $10,000 pre-tax in a fortnight because their rosters and their on-calls are awful. But I guess we get reimbursed for it, which it sounds like overseas a lot of people don't. And I should clarify that in Australia, all junior doctors, depending on what state you're in, regardless of specialty, will get paid the same amount. So in Victoria, I get paid as a paediatric trainee the same amount per hour that a surgical trainee does or that a psychiatry trainee does in the hospital system. So the difference in pay is purely about your roster and how many hours you work. Then when you're a consultant, you can work privately and charge whatever you want, and then that's when you get some discrepancies. Okay, so that's what I'm getting paid now. I'm getting paid $66 an hour as my base pay as a PGY7, so 7 years out of med school doctor. So when I started working as an intern or an F1 or a PGY1, I earned $27 an hour. So that was actually less than what I earned when I was working in a bottle shop on the weekends to get myself through uni. That was back in Tassie, and they've since advocated for pay increases on par or actually a little bit over the Victorian rate. So now we get paid less in Victoria than they do in Tassie. It used to be the other way around. But my income's gone up. It went up quite a lot when I moved from Tassie to Victoria, and then it's gone up a little bit each year since then. Some years it's a couple of dollars an hour. I think one year there was a big jump of $10 an hour or something. But yeah, steadily increasing. And it will increase for the next 2 or 3 years. And then I hit my cap of what I can earn as a trainee. And then the next time it'll go up would be when I become a consultant. All right, so how much it cost to get me to earning this $66 an hour, and that's about 150,000 Australian dollars, including my medical school, which was about $80,000, which is as little as you can pretty much get away with paying for med school in Australia. And it's probably way less than what even the minimum is now because it was so long ago. But I was a Commonwealth supported place in an undergraduate medical degree. So I know people that have got help debts. So their uni debt from their education is $250,000 in Australia. So that's my $80,000. And then since then on training and exams and all of that stuff, I've spent another kind of $70,000. So I worked out at my current hourly rate of $66 an hour, I would need to work 2,272 hours to earn that money back. And that's an entire year of full-time work pre-tax. Okay, so how does this compare to other countries, which I think is what a lot of you are interested in? And disclaimer, this is purely from me Googling online and from what I could tell. But for a postgrad year 7 trainee doctor in the UK, you could expect to earn maybe £60,000. I think that's right. And in the US, it seems to be an average of about $80,000 US dollars. So just to refresh, my base pay pre-tax is 150,000 Australian dollars, which is 97 USD and 71 British pounds. So quite a bit higher in Australia. I will point out that I think residency training in the US seems a bit more intense, but it's much shorter than what it tends to be in Australia. And I think that's sort of similar to the UK, like the Australian process. So maybe PGY7 in the US, a doctor's likely to be a consultant and earning quite a bit more. And then to finish off, consultant pay in Australia, I had to look this up. I didn't really have any idea. So if you're watching this as a junior doctor or a med student, student, you're much more organized than me. But in the next few years, when I become a consultant in public hospitals, it starts from about $110 to $130 an hour, and it can go up to $200 to $220 an hour, depending on your experience and whether you work in private at all and that sort of thing. So really, as a fully fledged consultant, you can earn anywhere, if you're working full time, from $200,000 a year to $400,000 a year. And if you work privately, you can set your own rates. So that's my super transparent pay breakdown as a resident doctor, junior doctor, trainee doctor, whatever you want to call it, in Australia. And if you're interested in a breakdown of specifically what I have to pay each year as a trainee in Australia, then I'll link this video for you to watch next. See you next time.